Did the help bring their kid to work today get this brat out of my sight? Christopher Hayes pointed a manicured finger at the 12-year-old girl, the gold Rolex on his wrist catching the light. Bailey's voice shook. Sir, I'm Bailey Grant. I own this company. You don't own a thing. He snatched the folder from her hands and hurled it to the floor. Papers exploded across the carpet. You people always think you can waltz into our world and take what's ours. He fished a crisp $100 bill from his pocket, balled it up, and flicked it at her shoes. There's your welfare check, sweetheart. Now be a good girl, pick it up and get out. Bailey dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather her documents with trembling hands. Hot tears streaked her cheeks. That's right. On your knees exactly where you belong. Around them, phones came out recording every second. Ever watch someone destroy their own life without having a clue 7:30 in the morning? 6 months before the gala, Bailey Grant woke up in her massive bedroom. Sunlight flooded in through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The Grant estate stretched out below her. 30 acres of manicured lawns and ancient oaks. She reached for the framed photo on her nightstand, first thing every morning. Her parents smiled back at her. Disneyland. Bailey was 11 in that picture. Dad's arm draped over Mom, everyone laughing. 4 days later, their plane went down. Bailey pulled on her clothes, Navy uniform, white socks. The room felt wrong. Stuffed animals lined up on one shelf. Stacks of legal documents dominated her desk. Downstairs, the kitchen felt cavernous. 20-foot ceilings, marble counters where Mom used to sip her morning coffee. Bailey poured a bowl of cereal. The crunch echoed off the empty walls. Margaret Williams breezed through the side door. 55, a black woman with kind eyes and graying hair, pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. Sharp blazer professional vibe. Morning, baby. How'd you sleep? Okay. Bailey shrugged. Bad dreams. The plane again? Yeah. Margaret sat down, resting a warm hand on Bailey's shoulder. That's normal, sweetie. Grief doesn't play by the rules. Margaret had been her parents' close friend for 15 years and their corporate attorney. Now she lived in the guest house, watching over Bailey like a hawk. The doorbell chimed at 8:15. Thomas Anderson stood there with his briefcase. 60-years-old black man in a bespoke gray suit, silver hair perfectly coiffed. He'd been the Grant family attorney since the day Bailey was born. They gathered at the kitchen island. Bailey sat small between the two adults. Mr. Anderson clicked his briefcase open and slid a stack of documents across the marble. Bailey, time to go over the final paperwork. She nodded, her feet dangling above the floor. Tell me exactly what you inherited, in your own words. Bailey took a deep breath. 87% of Grant Industries' $4.3 billion. And the rest? The board members split the remaining 13%. Who runs the company day to day? The board, until I turn 18. But I have the final say on the big stuff. What kind of stuff? Anything over $10 million, hiring, firing, selling assets. Margaret gave her hand a squeeze. Mr. Anderson slid another paper forward. Bailey, there's something else. Her stomach did a flip. Adult conversations always started with that tone. The board appointed a new CEO 5 months ago, Christopher Hayes. I never met him. He never came by after it happened. He sent flowers, though. Yeah, flowers. Mr. Anderson's jaw set hard. Your father was getting ready to fire him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. What? Margaret leaned forward. I found Richard's private notes last week. Financial irregularities. Money moving where it shouldn't. He was building a RICO case. Then he died. Margaret finished softly. The board was in the dark. They promoted Hayes to CEO because he was already the CFO. Bailey's voice was barely a whisper. Is he stealing? I'm investigating. But Bailey, you can fire him anytime. Me, but you own 87%. You call the shots. Bailey looked down at her hands. They looked small, powerless. Does he know that? No. Mr. Anderson's lips quirked upward. He thinks the board pulls the strings. Thinks he's untouchable for another 6 years. He doesn't know you could terminate him today. He has no clue. Margaret leaned in close. There's a gala tonight. Your parents' annual charity ball. Bailey's throat went tight. I can't. You don't have to. But they never missed a year. They loved it. Raised millions for orphans. Orphans. Like her. She looked at the photo again. Her mom's radiant smile. Her dad's proud gaze. I want to go. Mr. Anderson nodded. Then we'll introduce you to the board, officially. Will Mr. Hayes be there? Yes. Will he be nice? The adults exchanged a look. Margaret pulled Bailey into a side hug. Sweetheart, some people won't be nice. Maybe because you're young, maybe because you're black. Bailey knew that reality all too well. So what do I do? Mr. Anderson's voice turned to steel. Remember who you are. You are Bailey Grant. Your parents built an empire. It belongs to you. I'm just a kid. You are a child, Margaret agreed. But you're a $4.3 billion child. That's a big difference. That evening, Bailey slipped into her navy dress. Mom bought it last year. It still fit just barely. She checked the mirror. Her mother's eyes, her father's stubborn chin. The limo pulled up at 6:30, sleek and black. Bailey climbed in, flanked by Margaret and Mr. Anderson. The folder rested on her lap. Deeds, certificates, the truth. You okay? Margaret asked. Scared. Good. That means you understand the stakes. The car merged onto the highway toward Manhattan, heading for the Grand Meridian Hotel. Bailey pressed her forehead against the cool glass. City lights flickered to life. Somewhere in that skyline, Christopher Hayes was suiting up. $5,000 tuxedo gold Rolex, grinning at himself in the mirror. He didn't know what was coming. Neither did Bailey, really. The car cut through the deepening twilight. The limousine glided to a stop at the Grand Meridian at 7 o'clock sharp. Valets scrambled. A red carpet cut a path from the curb to the brass doors. Paparazzi lined the rope's flashbulbs, popping like strobe lights. Bailey watched through the tint stomach tied in knots. Ready? Margaret asked. No. Good answer. Mr. Anderson smiled. Honesty goes a long way. The door swung open. The cool evening air hit her face. Bailey stepped out. Navy dress, white flats folder gripped like a lifeline. The photographers didn't even blink. Just a kid. Nobody worth shooting. She walked between Margaret and Mr. Anderson, 3 ghosts in a sea of glamour. Inside the lobby was breathtaking. Marble floors so polished she could count the lights in the reflection. Crystal chandeliers the size of minivans, gold leaf on every surface. The 1% filled the room. Diamonds, couture gowns, tuxedos worth more than a down payment on a house. Bailey felt microscopic. 12 years old, in a land of giants. The check-in table sat near the elevators. A woman in her 30s manned it, blonde, flawless makeup radiating boredom. Name? She asked, eyes glued to her list. Bailey Grant. The woman's pen froze. She looked up, confusion warping her features. I'm sorry, sweetie. This is an adult event. I don't see any children on the list. I'm not a guest, Bailey said, voice quiet but steady. I'm... Jennifer, is there a problem here? A deep voice boomed, dripping with entitlement. Bailey turned. Christopher Hayes stood 10 feet away. 48 white, looming at 6'2". His tux screamed money. A gold Rolex caught the chandelier light. Brown hair graying perfectly at the temples. The picture of corporate success. His wife Amanda stood beside him. 42 blonde, draped in enough ice to sink the Titanic. Her gown probably cost more than a luxury sedan. 5 other men orbited Christopher, all white, all rich, all grinning. Christopher stepped closer, swirling a glass of expensive scotch. He looked down at Bailey, eyes raking over her, dismissing her existence in a nanosecond. Did the help brings their kid to work? He said it loud, playing to the crowd. "Get this little rat out of my event." Bailey's voice trembled. "Sir, I'm Bailey Grant. I own this company." "Own?" Christopher let out a sharp, cruel laugh. "The only thing you'll ever own is a mop and bucket just like your mother." He lunged, snatching the folder from her grip. Bailey scrambled. "Please, those are my—" Christopher hurled it. The folder hit the marble with a smack and burst open. Papers flew. Death certificates, stock deeds, family photos. Her mom's eyes stared back from the glossy print on the floor. "Sir, please." Bailey dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather the loose pages, her hands trembling. Christopher whipped out a wallet, bursting with cash. He peeled off $100 bills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. $500. He wadded them into a tight ball and chucked it right at Bailey's head. The cash smacked her face and skittered across the floor. "There's your tip. Now scrape that up before I have you hauled off for trespassing." Bailey was already down, tears carving tracks through the dust on her cheeks. She snatched her mother's photo first, pressing it tight against her heart. "Get a load of this." Christopher spun around to face his audience. 20 people watching now. She's already right where she belongs on the ground with the garbage. A snicker rippled through the room, then another. Soon half the guests were laughing. Smartphones popped up recording the scene. Amanda Hayes strutted closer, her stilettos clicking sharply on the marble. "Christopher, honey, should we call CPS? The girl is clearly mental." "Great idea, babe." Christopher took a slow sip of his scotch. "Jennifer, get security on the line. We've got an intruder." Jennifer grabbed her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. "Mr. Hayes, are you sure she did say her name was—" "I don't care what she said. I'm the CEO of Grant Industries. Pretty sure I'd know if the owner walked in." Bailey looked up at him, her vision swimming in tears. "I am the owner. My parents—" "Your parents what left you billions." Christopher's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Oh, sure they did, princess. And I'm the King of England." His buddies roared with laughter. One guy whipped out his phone and started a live stream. "You guys gotta see this. Some kid trying to crash the Grant Industries gala. The stream is blowing up." Comments started rolling in instantly. "What's going on? Is that a little girl? Why is she crying?" Christopher spotted the camera, grinning ear to ear, hamming it up. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you let the riffraff in." He gestured at Bailey like a game show host showcasing a prize. "This kid walks into our event, claims she owns a $5 billion company, and expects us to just take her word for it." Bailey gathered her papers, each sheet feeling heavier than lead. Her mother's death certificate. Her father's will stock certificates, bearing her name. Christopher spotted them bent down and ripped the death certificates right out of her hands. "Oh, look at this." She printed up fake docs. He held them up to the chandelier light. "Probably whipped these up on a home printer." "Those are real," Bailey whispered. "My parents died 6 months ago. That's their parents." Christopher pitched his voice high and mocking. "Honey, Richard and Catherine Grant were successful people, educated, powerful. You really think their daughter would be groveling on the floor like a dog?" He mashed the death certificates into a ball and pelted her with them again. Bailey caught the paper, frantically trying to flatten the wrinkles. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely hold on. Margaret lunged forward. Mr. Anderson caught her arm, giving a subtle shake of his head. "Not yet," he mouthed. Margaret ground her teeth, but she held her ground. The crowd swelled to 40, maybe 50 people. Phones everywhere now. The live stream hit 5,000 viewers. The comment section went nuts. "This is sick. Someone help her. That guy is a monster. She's just a kid, but then probably lying though. Looks like a scam to me." "Where are her parents?" Christopher saw the view count, and his grin widened. This was PR gold. The tough CEO protecting his empire from fraud. Amanda loomed over Bailey. "Sweetie, where'd you actually get these papers? Who put you up to this?" Bailey looked up at the woman. "No, ma'am. These are mine. My lawyer has the originals. Mr. Anderson is—" "Mr. Anderson?" Christopher cracked up. "Thomas Anderson, the estate attorney? Yeah, right. So where is he if you're really Bailey Grant? Where's your high-powered lawyer? Bailey spun around, searching for Mr. Anderson. He was standing 50 feet back, still holding Margaret in check, just watching, waiting. He's right there, Bailey pointed. Christopher glanced over, saw an elderly black gentleman in a suit, and dismissed him instantly. That guy Honey Thomas Anderson wears $5,000 suits. That's probably someone's chauffeur. The crowd erupted in laughter again. Bailey's voice cracked. That is Mr. Anderson. He's been my family's lawyer since I was born. Sure kid. Christopher downed the rest of his scotch and shoved the empty glass at Bailey. Here, earn your keep. Run this to the bar. Bailey stared at the glass. She didn't move. Christopher's smile dropped. I said take it. No. The word was quiet, but it had steel in it. Christopher's face went dark. Excuse me. What did you say? I said no. Bailey stood up, clutching the papers to her chest. I'm not your maid. You're not anything. Christopher stepped in close, using his height to loom over her. You're a lying little grifter who crashed my party. Security. 2 guards materialized. Both white guys in their 40s, big hired muscle. The lead guard, Eric, looked uneasy. Mr. Hayes, get this kid out of here. She's trespassing. Eric looked at Bailey. The tears, the scattered papers, the wadded up cash on the floor. Sir, maybe we should... Did I ask for your opinion? Get her out, now. Eric stepped forward slowly. Miss, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Bailey stumbled back. I have a right to be here. This is my family's company. Miss, please don't make this hard. The second guard moved to Bailey's other side, boxing her in. Bailey felt the walls closing in. 2 massive men, a sea of strangers. Christopher Hayes smiling like a predator. She looked at Margaret, eyes pleading. Margaret's face was stone, but her hands were balled into tight fists. Mr. Anderson tightened his grip on Margaret's shoulder, still waiting. Sir, Eric said to Christopher, she's just a kid. Maybe we could call someone, run a check on her story. Her story is a fairy tale. Christopher's voice boomed across the lobby. And I'm done with this sideshow. Remove her or you're both looking for work tomorrow. Eric's face went pale. He had kids to feed. He needed the paycheck. He reached for Bailey's arm. Miss, please come with me. Bailey yanked her arm back. Don't touch me. Miss, I said, don't touch me. Her voice spiked, panicked. The live stream hit 15,000 viewers. The comments were flying. Call the cops. This is assault. Someone do something. Christopher checked the numbers. He saw the tide turning against him. Time to wrap this up. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Yeah, this is Christopher Hayes, CEO of Grant Industries. I'm at the Grand Meridian. We've got an unwanted guest. A child, yeah. About 12 black female claims she owns my company. Clearly mental or put up to it. He paused, listening. Thanks, we'll wait. He hung up, flashing a smirk at Bailey. Cops are on the way, sweetheart. Hope you like juvenile detention. Bailey's knees buckled. She hit the marble floor, hard papers scattering everywhere again. This time she didn't pick them up. She just sat there, sobbing. Christopher stood over her, triumph in his eyes. That's what I thought. All bluff. Amanda laughed. Poor thing. Someone really needs to teach these people some respect. The crowd murmured. Some looked uncomfortable. Most were entertained. This was better than the floor show. Across the lobby, Mr. Anderson checked his watch. 7:15 p.m., right on schedule. He released Margaret's shoulder. Now, he said quietly. Margaret moved like a coiled spring. She cut through the crowd like a hot knife through butter. People stumbled out of her way. Her face was pure rage. She reached Bailey in seconds, dropped to her knees, and pulled the girl into a fierce hug. I've got you, baby. Bailey buried her face in Margaret's shoulder, her whole body shaking. Christopher looked down, irritated. And who are you, the nanny? Margaret's head snapped up, eyes blazing fire. I'm her legal guardian, Margaret Williams, attorney at law. An attorney? Christopher laughed. What storefront lawyer? Harvard class of '95, corporate litigation, and you just put your hands on my client. I didn't touch her. You threw documents at a minor, verbal abuse, hostile environment, 50 witnesses, and 20,000 live stream viewers. Christopher's face fell. 20,000. He glanced at the phone. The numbers were climbing. 25,000. 30,000. 40,000. The comments were going nuclear. Sue him. Call the press. Look at that poor baby. Christopher cleared his throat loudly, trying to regain control. I was merely protecting my company from potential fraud. Fraud. Margaret shot to her feet. You want to talk about fraud, Mr. Hayes? I'm not just speculating. I'm holding hard evidence of your embezzlement. We can hash it out right here, or we can wait for the cops. Christopher went pale. The room fell deathly silent. Amanda grabbed his arm, her grip tight. Christopher, what is she talking about? Nothing. She's bluffing. Am I? Margaret whipped out her smartphone. Offshore account Cayman Islands. Opened March 15th, exactly 5 days after Richard and Catherine Grant died. Initial deposit $2 million wired directly from Grant Industries. Christopher's jaw dropped, but no words formed. Margaret didn't let up. Shell company in Delaware. Hayes Consulting LLC. $12 million in contracts for services that were never rendered. Payments approved by you? She paused. That's confidential. No, that's stolen. Stolen from an orphan. Margaret's voice was razor sharp. Stolen from a 12-year-old girl before her parents were even in the ground. The crowd gasped. Smartphones shot up everywhere. The live stream counter ticked past 60,000 viewers. Christopher backpedaled. You can't prove any of that. I'm an attorney, Mr. Hayes. I don't make accusations I can't back up. Mr. Anderson stepped forward, slicing through the crowd to stand beside Margaret. Hello, Christopher. Christopher's face turned an ashen gray. Thomas, it's been 5 months since the board meeting where you took over as CEO. I earned that position. Did you? Anderson popped the latches on his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Richard Grant's personal notes tell a very different story. Richard died, conveniently. Anderson's voice was ice cold. He was investigating you for financial irregularities. He had a meeting with the FBI scheduled for the week after he died. The temperature in the lobby seemed to drop 10 degrees. Christopher scanned the room. 80 people stared back at him with judgment in their eyes. His career was imploding in real time. This is slander, I'll sue. Please do. Margaret smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Discovery will be fascinating. Every account, every transaction, every email. Amanda yanked her hand away and stepped back, as if he were contagious. Christopher, you stole from a dead man's child? It's not. Let me explain. Anderson took a step closer. $15 million in shell companies and forged contracts. Christopher's breathing turned ragged. Beads of sweat broke out across his forehead. The company needed. Richard would have approved. Richard was in the process of firing you. Anderson held up a sheet of handwritten notes. His handwriting. Hayes' embezzlement. He was going to call the FBI to protect Bailey. Bailey looked up, recognizing her father's script, and fresh tears spilled over. Christopher saw the note and recognized the penmanship. His legs turned to jelly. It could be a fake. Authenticated by 3 separate handwriting experts, and the FBI already has copies. The words FBI echoed through the lobby. People instinctively backed away. Amanda turned to the crowd, panic in her voice. I had no idea we're separated. We are not. Christopher grabbed for her, but she slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. I want a lawyer. You're my wife. Not for long. She pushed past him, her heels clicking sharply as she fled. She was gone. Christopher stood alone, isolated. 90 people watched him unravel. Eric, the security guard, stepped forward. Mr. Hayes, still want me to remove the child? Yes. No, I mean, the police are almost here. You called them. Christopher turned a sickly shade of green. He had called the police on himself. Anderson smirked. Ironic, isn't it? Bailey stood up. Margaret helped her face puffy from crying, but her voice steady. Mr. Anderson, what are my rights as the majority shareholder? Her voice carried through the stunned silence. Anderson turned, speaking loud enough for the back row to hear. As the owner of 87% of the stock, you have ultimate authority. Period. Can I fire the CEO? Anyone, anytime, for any reason. What if he signed contracts? Void them. Review everything, renegotiate everything. What if he stole? Press charges. Sue him, civilly, demand full restitution plus interest. Bailey locked eyes with Christopher. A 12-year-old facing down a 48-year-old man. I want him arrested. Christopher let out a desperate, manic laugh. Arrested? You're a child. No. Bailey's voice hardened. But the police you called, they can. The main doors slid open. 2 NYPD officers strode in uniforms crisp. Officer Martinez took the lead, a 45-year-old Latina with a no-nonsense vibe. Her partner, Officer Johnson, was black, 30, and looked sharp. Who called about a trespasser? Christopher's hand started to rise, then froze halfway. Everyone stared at him. Martinez walked over. You made the call? Yes, it was a misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? Margaret stepped forward. Officers, Margaret Williams, attorney at law. This man assaulted my client. She's 12 years old. Verbal abuse, intimidation causing severe emotional distress. Martinez looked at Bailey. Tears-red eyes, papers scattered around her. Is that true? Bailey nodded silently. Martinez turned back to Christopher, her expression hardening. ID, please. I am Christopher Hayes, CEO of Grant Industries. This is a terrible mistake. ID, now. Christopher fumbled his hands, shaking violently as he produced his license. Martinez glanced at it and handed it to Johnson. Run him. Why, I'm the victim here. You called about a child. She's crying on the floor. You're sweating through your suit. The math doesn't add up. Johnson keyed the radio, speaking quietly. Anderson handed Martinez his business card. Thomas Anderson, estate attorney for the Grant family. Let me explain what's happening. This is Bailey Grant, sole heir. She owns 87% of Grant Industries, net worth $4.3 billion. Martinez's eyebrows shot up. She looked at Bailey, then back at Anderson. This little girl owns billions. Yes, here's the proof. Anderson handed over the documents. Birth certificates, court papers, notarized deeds. Martinez read them, her expression shifting from skeptical to shocked to angry. She glared at Christopher. You called the police on a child who owns the building you're standing in. I didn't know, I didn't ask, I just assumed. The live stream hit 120,000 viewers. Johnson walked back over. Ma'am, federal flag just popped. Financial Crimes Unit, he's flagged in the system. Martinez nodded grimly. Mr. Hayes, you're coming with us. Questions about what? Embezzlement and wire fraud. The FBI called it in 30 minutes ago. Christopher's knees buckled and he grabbed a marble column to stay upright. This is insane. I have rights. Yes, and I'm reading them to you now. Martinez pulled her handcuffs from her belt. Are you arresting me? Detaining you for questioning. Turn around. I will not turn around, Add resisting arrest to the list. Christopher looked around desperately. The crowd, the phones, the cameras, no one was helping him. Defeated, he turned. Martinez slapped the cuffs on. The metal clicked loudly in the quiet lobby. Christopher Hayes, you are being detained for questioning regarding embezzlement, fraud, and financial crimes. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The rights echoed off the walls. Christopher started sobbing. Please, my family, my employees. It was one mistake. Sounds like several mistakes to me. Martinez marched him toward the door. Christopher looked back over his shoulder. I'm sorry, I didn't know. If I had known... Bailey's voice cut through the air like a knife. You'd be nice to me because I'm rich. Christopher stopped. What if I was nobody? If I was just a maid's kid? Would I deserve that? No answer. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. Martinez nudged him forward. Let's go. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a path to the door. Christopher walked the walk of shame, a death march, handcuffs glinting under the lobby lights. 30 minutes ago he was a king. Now his life was destroyed. The doors closed behind him. The lobby erupted into noise. Everyone was talking at once. The live stream hit 150,000. The news vans would be swarming by morning. Bailey sat back down on the floor, too exhausted to cry anymore. Margaret sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You did good, kid. I don't feel good. I know, but you stood up for yourself. That takes real courage. Anderson knelt down. Bailey, we need to make a statement. Introduce you properly. Now? Yes, everyone is here. Cameras are rolling. Bailey looked at the hundreds of eyes fixed on her. She was so tired. But my parents would want this. She stood up. Margaret and Anderson flanked her like bodyguards. Someone handed her a microphone. It was time to tell the world exactly who Bailey Grant was. The microphone felt heavy in her small hands, the metal cold against her palm. Dr. Patricia Morrison approached 62 White in a perfectly tailored suit. She was the board chairperson, usually bored and detached. She'd been standing in the back, watching everything unfold, her face unreadable. Now she walked forward, her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble. Bailey? Her voice was uncharacteristically soft. Is that really you? Bailey nodded slowly. Yes, Dr. Morrison. Oh my God. Patricia's professional composure cracked. Oh, sweetheart, I am so sorry. She knelt down, bringing herself to Bailey's eye level. We should have protected you better. We should have told Christopher you might be coming. We should have... Her voice broke. Bailey saw genuine tears welling up in the older woman's eyes. It's okay. No, Patricia said firmly, standing up and turning to address the crowd. It is absolutely not okay. Her voice cut through the noise, crisp, commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, I need everyone's undivided attention now. The lobby went dead silent. 200 pairs of eyes locked onto them. I am Dr. Patricia Morrison, chairwoman of the board for Grant Industries. She placed a firm, protective hand on Bailey's shoulder. Standing beside me is Miss Bailey Grant, the daughter of our late beloved founders Richard and Catherine Grant. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Following the tragic loss of her parents 6 months ago, Bailey inherited 87% of this corporation. That makes her the majority shareholder and the ultimate authority in this building. Gasps mixed with frantic whispers. She is 12 years old. She is brilliant, and she is resilient. But tonight she was publicly humiliated by a man we all trusted. Patricia's tone turned to ice. Christopher Hayes is no longer the CEO of Grant Industries. Effective immediately, he has been terminated for cause specifically regarding major financial crimes, embezzlement, and gross abuse of power. The room erupted, questions shouted over one another, camera flashes blinding them. Patricia held up a hand, demanding order. Silence fell again. The board is launching a full internal audit. We will claw back every stolen dollar. We will rebuild our reputation, and we will ensure this level of corruption never happens again. She glanced down at the young girl. Miss Grant, would you like to address the room? Bailey stared at the microphone. Then the crowd, then the lenses pointed at her. Her voice started shaky, but quickly found its footing. My mom and dad loved this company. They built it on honesty and sweat equity. She paused, swallowing hard. Mr. Hayes forgot that. He thought he could rob me blind because I'm young, because I'm black, and because he thought I was weak. Her voice leveled out, steel entering her tone. He was wrong. The crowd stood motionless, hanging on every syllable. I'm not weak. And I'm neither is anyone else who looks like me, or is young like me, or has been treated like they don't matter. Bailey looked straight into the lens of the nearest news camera. We all matter. We all deserve basic respect, and we all have the right to fight back. The lobby exploded into applause. It was thunderous genuine. People were wiping away tears, cheering her on. Bailey handed the mic back, suddenly looking like a kid again. Margaret pulled her into a side hug. Perfect, baby. That was absolutely perfect. Anderson smiled warmly. Your parents would be incredibly proud right now. The live stream counter hit 200,000 viewers. The comment section was a blur of support. She's a legend. Justice served. This kid is a hero. Reporters surged forward shouting questions. Bailey, how do you feel? Are you pressing criminal charges? What's the future of the company? Anderson stepped in front, using his body as a shield. Miss Grant will not be taking questions tonight. She's been through enough. Patricia Morrison chimed in, the board will issue a formal press release tomorrow morning. For now, give this child some space. Security guards formed a tight perimeter, gently pushing the press pool back. Margaret guided Bailey toward the elevator bank, with Anderson flanking them. As they moved, people reached out just to touch Bailey's shoulder, whispering encouragement. We're with you. You're so brave. Thank you. You're an inspiration. Bailey managed a few weak smiles, but her energy was crashing. The elevator doors slid shut. Finally, peace. Bailey slumped against the metal wall, her legs turning to jelly. Can we just go home? Yes, sweetie. We're going home. The car began to rise, leaving the cameras and the chaos behind, moving away from Christopher Hayes and his cruelty. But the footage was already out there, viral, unstoppable. By sunrise, the entire world would know Bailey Grant's name, and they'd know exactly what happens when you underestimate her. The elevator dinged, opening onto the ballroom level. Classical music drifted into the hallway. The orchestra was in full swing. Dinner service had started. 500 guests were inside the gala, completely oblivious to the drama downstairs. Bailey froze. I can't go in there. You don't have to, Margaret said softly. Patricia Morrison stepped in. Actually, she does. Everyone turned. Patricia's expression was sympathetic but unyielding. Bailey, these people need to see you. If they don't, the rumors take over. Lies fill the empty space. I'm too tired, Bailey whispered. I know, but this matters. 10 minutes. Bailey looked at Margaret silently, pleading. Margaret squeezed her hand. It's your call, baby. Bailey thought about her parents, how they never missed this event. Okay, 10 minutes. Patricia smiled. That's all we need. They walked through the double doors together. Strings playing, guests picking at salads, champagne pouring, laughter in the air. Then one person pointed. The whispers spread like a contagion. Is that her? The girl from the video? It's trending right now. Phones were whipped out. People checked their feeds, watching the lobby confrontation that had just occurred. The orchestra trailed off mid-measure. A heavy silence crashed over the room. 500 wealthy adults staring at one 12-year-old girl. Bailey's knees almost buckled. This was harder than the lobby. Patricia strode to the stage and grabbed the microphone. Good evening. Apologies for the interruption. Dead air. Many of you have just seen a video circulating regarding an incident in our lobby. I want to address the elephant in the room. She gestured toward the entrance. This is Miss Bailey Grant, majority owner of Grant Industries, and the daughter of Richard and Catherine Grant. Murmurs rippled through the hall. One voice cut through. An older man spoke up. That's the girl who got Christopher arrested. Patricia's tone dropped 20 degrees. That is the girl Christopher Hayes assaulted, verbally abused, and tried to humiliate. Yes, he was arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Sharp gasps. Christopher Hayes stole $15 million from this company and from this child. He robbed her while she was grieving her parents. The room broke into chaos, everyone talking at once. Patricia raised a hand, commanding silence. The board voted unanimously. Christopher Hayes is terminated. Effective immediately, all contracts are under review. Every transaction will be audited." She paused for effect. "And let me be crystal clear." Her voice projected to the back of the room. "Bailey Grant is not just a figurehead. She is the owner of this corporation. Her decisions are final. Her authority is absolute." She looked at the girl. "Miss Grant, do you have any words for the guests?" Bailey's heart hammered against her ribs. 500 people watching. She walked slowly toward the stage. Each step felt like a mile. Margaret helped her up the stairs. The stage felt massive. Bailey took the mic. Her hand shook slightly. "Hi." Her voice sounded tiny over the speakers. She cleared her throat. "My name is Bailey Grant. I'm 12 years old." You could hear a pin drop. 6 months ago, my parents died in a plane crash. I lost everything that mattered to me. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through the emotion. "But I didn't lose this company. My parents built it for me, for our future. They built it on values. Honesty, hard work, treating people with dignity." She scanned the room, meeting people's eyes. "Tonight, a man forgot those values. He saw a black child and assumed I was nobody, just a thief." Some guests looked down, ashamed. "He was wrong, and he's going to pay for it." Her voice gained strength. "But I want you to remember something. I'm lucky. I have resources, lawyers, power. Most kids who look like me don't. They have nothing. Nobody listens to them. Nobody cares." She paused, letting it sink in. "So when you see a child being disrespected, or anyone being judged by their appearance, don't just be a spectator. Don't just pull out your phone and record. Do something, say something, stand up." Tears glistened on several faces in the crowd. "That's what my parents would want. That's what I want." She handed the microphone back. The room exploded. A standing ovation, thunderous applause. People were openly weeping, clapping, cheering. Bailey stood there overwhelmed, 12 years old, and being hailed as a hero. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt exhausted, sad, and scared, but also something else. Something new, powerful. Margaret came up and wrapped her in a tight embrace. "Time to go home, baby." "Yeah, please." They walked off stage through the standing crowd. Guests reached out to pat her shoulder or squeeze her hand. "You're amazing." "That took real guts, Bailey. Your folks would be beaming right now." Bailey forced the corners of her mouth up, but she was running on fumes. The limo sat idling at the curb. They slid inside, and the heavy doors thudded shut. Finally safe. Finally alone. Bailey slumped against Margaret's side. "Is it actually over?" "The hard part?" "Yeah, but the rest is just starting." The car eased away from the hotel, leaving the paparazzi and the chaos in the rearview mirror. Bailey watched the city streak by in a blur of neon. Her phone vibrated against her leg. A text from Mr. Anderson popped up asterisk. Video hit 3 million views. Every network was blowing up his line. "You're about to be a household name, kid." She didn't want fame. She just wanted her mom and dad back. Since that wasn't an option, she'd settle for the runner-up prize, making sure their legacy actually meant something. They cruised through the darkness, heading for sanctuary. Behind them, the Grand Meridian Hotel was a circus of strobe lights and confusion. Reporters swarmed the place. Yellow police tape crisscrossed the lobby. Satellite trucks jammed the streets. The media circus was just warming up, but for Bailey, the show was over for the night. She shut her eyes and leaned into Margaret. For the first time in 6 months, a strange sense of calm settled over her. It wasn't happiness, not exactly, but it was peace. Justice had actually worked. She'd spoken up, flexed her power, and now Christopher Hayes was sitting in a holding cell. Amanda was probably filing for divorce amidst the wreckage of her social life, while the company scrambled to put out fires. Meanwhile, 12-year-old Bailey Grant was simply going home. The car glided through the dark streets. Tomorrow meant new headaches, new burdens, new fights. But tonight was for resting. She'd won. Margaret smoothed Bailey's hair. "Close your eyes, sweetie. I've got you." Bailey's breathing shifted slow and deep. Outside the city was a sprawling grid of 1,000,000 glowing lights. Every single one was a life, a struggle, a story. Now Bailey's story was woven into that fabric. Her face was about to be on every monitor. Her words were going to be everywhere. The kid who stood up to the machine. The orphan who turned into a warrior. Up in the front seat, Mr. Anderson was already juggling calls on his cell. Lawyers, reporters, panicked board members. "No interviews tonight," he said firmly. "Miss Grant needs to sleep. We'll put out a statement tomorrow." He ended the call and glanced back at the sleeping girl. "That kid just shifted the entire world's axis," he murmured. Margaret nodded. "She shifted her own too. She's never going back to who she was. Is that a good thing?" "It's both. It's always both." The limo merged onto the highway, pointing toward Westchester, toward the Grant estate, toward home. Behind them, Manhattan glittered, a city that never slept and absolutely loved a juicy drama. And Bailey Grant had just handed them the blockbuster of the year. The car disappeared into the dark, and the world kept right on spinning. Morning arrived way too fast. Bailey woke up to sunlight cutting across her room. For 3 seconds, she was just a normal kid. Then reality came crashing back like a wave. The hotel, Christopher, the cameras. She scrambled for her phone. 47 missed calls, 200 texts. Her notifications were a disaster zone. She opened Twitter, her hands trembling. Trending worldwide at #1 Bailey Grant. Hashtag justice served. Hashtag never underestimate. The video had already racked up 20 million views. She scrolled through the comments. Asterisk, this kid is my absolute hero. She's so brave. Asterisk, Hayes belongs in jail. But then the toxic ones appeared. It's a publicity stunt. She's too young to run a company. Asterisk, her parents faked their deaths. Bailey hurled the phone across the room. It smacked against the wall just as a knock sounded on her door. "Bailey, you up?" It was Margaret. "Yeah." Margaret eased the door open, balancing a breakfast tray with pancakes and orange juice. "You need to eat?" "I need this to stop." Margaret sat on the edge of the bed. "It's not going to stop, sweetie. Not for a while. You're famous now." "How long?" "Weeks, maybe months." Bailey curled into a ball, knees to chest. "I don't want to be famous." "I know, but you are." The doorbell chimed downstairs. It rang again. Margaret went to the window and peeled back the curtain. "Oh, Lord." "What?" "News vans. There's at least 20 of them parked at the gate." Bailey peeked out. It was a sea of reporters, cameras, and satellite dishes. "They can't get in, right? Security will stop them." There was another knock at the bedroom door. Mr. Anderson walked in, looking wrecked, his suit rumpled. "Have you seen the news?" "We're looking at it," Margaret said. "No, the asterisk, real asterisk news." He grabbed the remote and clicked on Bailey's TV. Her face was plastered across the screen. The chyron read, asterisk, 12-year-old CEO exposes massive embezzlement scheme. The anchor was mid-sentence. The financial world is in shock this morning after disturbing footage surfaced of Christopher Hayes berating the 12-year-old owner of Grant Industries. The video from the lobby played on a loop, Hayes throwing papers, Bailey in tears. Bailey had to look away. Hayes was taken into custody on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and other financial crimes. The FBI has confirmed an active investigation into the alleged theft of $15 million. Footage showed Christopher in cuffs being shoved into a cruiser. He looked completely broken. "Hayes is currently being held without bail," the anchor said, offering a small smile. "But the real story here is Bailey Grant." They cut to her speech. "We all deserve respect. We all have the right to fight back." Wise words from someone so young, the anchor opined. Anderson hit the mute button. "It's on every channel. Fox, MSNBC, BBC, everyone." Bailey felt numb. "So, what happens now?" "Now we control the narrative." Anderson tapped his tablet. "Press conference this afternoon. Grant Industries HQ, a brief statement." "I have to talk again." "Yes, but this time on your terms. We'll have it prepared." Margaret stepped in. She's exhausted, Anderson. Every hour we stay silent, the rumors get worse. He turned the tablet around to show them the headlines. Asterisk child. CEO publicity stunt. Asterisk. Asterisk did parents fake deaths. Grant family secrets revealed. Bailey's stomach did a flip. It's all lies, Anderson said. Which is why we have to go today? Margaret looked torn. She is 12 years old. She's a billionaire who just took down a criminal on national TV. The world needs to see she's in the driver's seat. Bailey stood up. I'll do it. Bailey! No, Margaret, he's right. I started this. I'm going to finish it. She walked to her closet. What do I wear? Anderson smiled. Whoa. Professional, but age-appropriate. You're a kid asterisk and asterisk a CEO. Be both. 2 hours later, the limo was tearing toward Manhattan. Bailey wore a sharp navy blazer, a crisp white shirt, and a gray skirt. They approached the Grant Building, 40 stories of glass and steel. Her parents built this tower. Now it belonged to her. The street level was pure chaos. Reporters, cameras, people shouting. Bailey, how do you feel? Are you scared, Bailey? Security formed a phalanx, pushing a path through the mob to protect her. She kept her chin up, ignoring the lenses, moving forward with a quiet, dignified power. Inside the lobby, it was a different story. Hundreds of employees lined the halls, erupting into applause for their 12-year-old boss. She managed a smile and a small wave. She saw tears on some of their faces. A woman in her 50s wearing a custodian's uniform stepped forward. Miss Grant, thank you. Bailey stopped. For what? For standing up. For showing that people like us matter. Her eyes were wet. I've been cleaning these offices for 20 years. I felt invisible. You made us visible. Bailey didn't hesitate. She hugged her. The woman hugged back tight. The cameras caught every second. That was tomorrow's front page, the CEO and the custodian. Both human. Anderson guided Bailey to the elevator. They rode up to the executive floor and headed for the main conference room. 50 journalists were packed inside, cameras poised. Bailey took a deep breath. You ready? Margaret asked. No, but let's go. They walked in and the room exploded with flashes. Questions flew from every direction. Anderson raised a hand, demanding silence. Miss Bailey Grant will make a brief statement. There will be no questions. Bailey stepped up to the podium. Someone had placed a box there so she could reach the microphone. She looked into the cameras at the reporters and out at the world. When she spoke, her voice didn't shake. My name is Bailey Grant. I am 12 years old. Yesterday, a man tried to destroy me because of my age and my appearance. She let the words hang there. He failed, and he is going to pay for what he did. Another pause. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to say this. Grant Industries isn't going anywhere. We will be stronger, more honest, and fairer than before. Her voice grew louder. My parents built this company on integrity. I intend to honor that. Every decision I make will reflect their values. She stared directly down the lens. To every kid watching this, your voice matters. Your truth matters. Don't ever let anyone silence you. She stepped back from the mic. The room erupted again, reporters shouting questions over the frantic clicking of shutters. But Bailey was done talking. She walked out with her head held high, flanked by Margaret and Anderson. Outside, the world was waiting for her. Bailey, however, was ready. 3 days later, the FBI descended on Christopher Hayes' estate. It was 6 a.m. Agents in windbreakers, search warrants in hand, carrying out boxes, while news choppers circled overhead, broadcasting the downfall live. Christopher stood on his manicured lawn, in his silk pajamas, handcuffs gleaming, his face drained of color. Down the street, Amanda watched the spectacle from the safety of her lawyer's sedan. She had moved out 2 days prior and filed for divorce that very afternoon. The raid dragged on for 6 hours. The agents found it all: offshore bank statements, forged contracts, emails mapping out the embezzlement proof of bribery and his schemes to manipulate Bailey. It was worse than anyone imagined. That evening, the Bureau held a press conference. Special Agent Rachel Morrison took the podium looking 45 and stern. Today, we executed search warrants on Mr. Hayes' residence and corporate offices. We have recovered substantial evidence regarding financial crimes. She paused for effect. Mr. Hayes is being charged with 23 counts, including embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The press corps erupted into shouting. Morrison raised a hand to silence them. The total theft amounts to $18.7 million. If convicted, he faces 40 years in federal prison. 40 years. Christopher was 48. That was a life sentence. He would likely die behind bars. Morrison continued, "We are also investigating 3 board members who accepted bribes. 2 have already resigned. The 3rd is cooperating with the investigation." Back at the Grant estate, Bailey watched the coverage on TV. Margaret sat beside her. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know. Sad, angry, relieved, a mix of everything." "That is completely normal." Bailey's phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from Mr. Anderson. The trial date was set, 6 months. "You will have to testify." Her stomach plummeted. "Court." Margaret read the screen over her shoulder. "We will be right there with you." "I don't want to see him," Bailey whispered. "I know, honey, but this is what justice looks like." The following week, Grant Industries convened an emergency board meeting. 12 members present. Bailey sat at the head of the table. Her frame looked tiny in her father's massive chair, but her voice was steel. 3 board members have resigned. We need replacements." Dr. Patricia Morrison nodded. "We have some recommendations." "I have requirements," Bailey corrected. Bailey cut her off. The room fell silent. She pulled out a sheet of paper, handwritten. 50% women, 30% people of color, and nobody over the age of 70. Murmurs rippled through the room. Gerald Thompson spoke up, an older white man and one of Christopher's cronies. "Miss Grant, those requirements are very specific." "Yes," Bailey said, locking eyes with him. "Mr. Thompson, I am accepting your resignation today." His face turned a deep shade of red. "Excuse me?" "You knew Christopher for 30 years. You ignored the warnings. You failed me." "I didn't know," he stammered. "You didn't want to know. That is worse." Margaret gave Bailey's hand a squeeze. Gerald stood up. "You can't fire me. I own 87% of this company. You have 10 minutes to clear out your office." Gerald looked around the table for support, but found none. He grabbed his briefcase and stormed out. Bailey turned to the remaining members. "Anyone else?" Silence. "Good. Here are my new appointments." She slid the papers across the mahogany surface. 3 names. Dr. Susan Thompson, child psychologist. Black woman 43. James Harrison, former FBI investigator. Black man 52. Linda Martinez Tech CEO, Latina 39. Patricia reviewed the list. "These are excellent choices. I spent 3 days researching them," Bailey noted. The board voted unanimously to approve. That week, Bailey announced the creation of the Richard and Catherine Grant Foundation, endowed with $50 million. Its mission support orphaned children with legal aid, financial education, and counseling. At the press conference at headquarters, Bailey stood at the podium, a crate positioned under her feet to give her height. "My parents died 6 months ago. I became an orphan with billions. I am the lucky one. Most orphans are left with nothing." She paused. "This foundation will protect them. Every child who loses their parents will have access to lawyers, financial advisors, and counselors." Cameras flashed in a blinding rhythm. No child should ever have to face what I faced. The foundation launched and applications flooded in. Hundreds, thousands. Orphans whose relatives had stolen their inheritances. Children exploited, kids ignored by the system. Bailey read every single application, crying over many of them. In the first month, she approved funding for 500 children. Meanwhile, the trial date loomed. Christopher's legal team tried every trick in the book. Delays, motions, plea bargains. The prosecution refused them all. This was going to trial, it would be public, and cameras were allowed. Bailey's therapy sessions increased to 3 times a week. Dr. Thompson helped her prepare mentally. The defense will try to make you look unreliable. They will play on your age. Are you confused? I am not confused, Bailey said. Stay calm, tell the truth, look at the jury, not at Christopher. What if I cry? Then you cry? You are 12 years old. You are allowed to have feelings. The trial began on a Monday in March, 6 months after the gala. The courthouse was packed to capacity. Media swarmed everywhere. Bailey wore a simple navy dress. She walked in and saw Christopher. He looked terrible. Thin gray, dressed in a prison jumpsuit and shackles. He glanced at her once, then looked away, ashamed. The trial dragged on for 3 weeks. The prosecutors laid out the evidence, financial records, emails, testimony. The numbers were damning. $18.7 million stolen through fake shell companies and fraudulent transactions. Christopher's defense was weak. He claimed he was just borrowing the money, blaming accounting errors. Nobody believed him. Then it was Bailey's turn. She walked to the witness stand and placed her hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth? I do. The prosecutor, Rachel Torres, approached with kind eyes. Bailey, tell the jury what happened. Bailey looked at the jury box. 12 faces waiting. I went to honor my parents. They never missed the gala. Her voice was steady. Mr. Hayes saw me. He assumed I was nobody, just a maid's daughter. She described everything, the insults, the money he threw at her, the scattered papers, and how he took her mother's ring. The jurors' faces darkened with anger. Hitch! He made me beg for my mother's ring. It was the last thing she ever gave me. Several jurors openly wept. The defense cross-examined her. You never identified yourself. I tried. He didn't listen. But I was 12, scared and grieving. He was 48, throwing money at me. The defense had no comeback. Bailey was dismissed. It was perfect. During closing arguments, Prosecutor Torres addressed the jury. Christopher Hayes stole from an orphaned child. He humiliated her. He showed no remorse until he was caught. She pointed an accusing finger at him. He represents unchecked privilege, the belief that some people matter and others don't. Her voice rose. Bailey Grant proved him wrong. She stood up, spoke out, and refused to be silenced. She turned to the jury. Deliver justice. No one is above the law. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict came in. Count 1 embezzlement guilty. Count 2 wire fraud guilty. Count 3 money laundering guilty. Guilty on all 23 counts. Christopher collapsed into his chair, sobbing. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Bailey attended. Judge Ana Maria Rodriguez, 60, Latina, and Stern presided. Mr. Hayes, you stole $18.7 million from an orphaned child. Christopher stood shaking. You abused your position. You betrayed a sacred trust. You showed no remorse. She looked down at her notes. The prosecution recommends 25 years. The defense requests 5. Her eyes were hard. I sentence you to 30 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for 20 years. 30 years? He would be 78. His life was effectively over. Bailey felt no joy, only closure. Outside reporters swarmed her. Bailey, how do you feel? She stepped up to the microphones. Justice was done. Mr. Hayes will pay for his crimes. What is next for you? Back to school, back to being 12, back to my life. A small smile touched her lips. But I will never forget. And I will never stop fighting for kids who can't fight for themselves. She walked away with her head held high. Behind her, Christopher was led away to prison. Ahead, the future waited. Bailey Grant had changed the world. 1 year later, Bailey stood in her father's old office. It was hers now. 47th floor Manhattan spread out below. She was 13 now. Taller, stronger, different. Her parents' photos hung on the wall. A Stanford acceptance letter was framed nearby early admission at 16. Her mother's ring sat on her desk, attached to a chain. It was still too big to wear. A knock came at the door. Margaret entered. "Board meeting at 5. "Coming." The conference room was full. 12 board members, diverse, brilliant. Patricia Morrison smiled at her. "Revenue is up 42%. Bailey nodded. "And the foundation," Dr. Thompson spoke up. 2,000 children served. 50 exploitation cases prevented. 50 kids saved. After the meeting, Bailey sat at her desk, pulled out her journal, and wrote, "1 year ago, Christopher Hayes tried to destroy me. He lost. He's locked up. I'm still standing." She gazed at the portrait of her parents. "Mom, Dad, I hope I did good." Her phone buzzed. Notification. "Hey, Bailey, name's Marcus. I'm 11. Lost my folks, too. Your nonprofit saved me. You saved me." Her eyes welled up. She typed back, "You're gonna make it, Marcus. We've got your back." That right there, that was the mission. Bailey walked to the glass, staring out at the skyline. Somewhere out there, another kid was getting bullied, ignored, crushed. But somewhere else, a fighter was rising. She grabbed her phone, flipped the camera. "Bailey Grant here. 12 months ago, a guy looked right through me like I was invisible." She locked eyes with the lens. He was dead wrong. Her voice steadied. "To every kid out there hearing you're worthless, too little, too weird, listen up. You have power right now, not later. Your voice counts. Your truth counts. You count. Rise up, speak up, fight back. And hey, adults, if you see a child getting trashed or dismissed, do something. Not tomorrow, now. Put the phone down, don't film it. Stop it, shield them, step up. That kid might not have a legal team like I did, might be broke, might be alone. Be their shield." Her gaze hardened. A year ago, a crowd watched a grown man destroy a 12-year-old girl. Some giggled. Some pulled out phones, most did nothing. Only 2 people moved Margaret and Mr. Anderson. 2 souls flipped the script. You could be that difference for someone. She held up a flyer. "Need support? The Richard and Catherine Grant Foundation is open. Link in the bio. Want to help donate, sign up, share this. If you take one thing away from this video, make it this." She leaned in. "Dignity isn't negotiable. Respect is mandatory, especially for the ones who look weak, because trust me, they aren't. They're just sleeping giants. Christopher Hayes tried to break me. He built me instead. Tried to show the world I was zero. He proved I was the whole damn sky." A faint smirk. "Thanks for watching. Go be a hero, like Margaret and Mr. Anderson were for me." Cut feed. Caption 365 days later. Unbroken. #justice. Posted. Margaret stepped in, ready to roll. "Yep. Hungry. Starving. Spaghetti. You got it." They took the elevator down and headed for the car. Bailey glanced back at the headquarters. Tomorrow meant CEO mode board meetings pressure. Tonight she was just 13. Homework TV chilling out. She hopped in the passenger seat. "Hey, Margaret." "Yeah, sweetie." "I feel good. First time since the crash." Margaret got teary-eyed. "Your folks would be over the moon." "Yeah, I think so." They merged into traffic. Bailey rested her head on the cool glass, watching the city blur. Christopher crossed her mind. 30 years in a cell, life over. She felt nothing. He was just a lesson now, a cautionary tale, a footnote in her history. She was writing a new chapter. The one about the girl who got knocked down and swung back hard. The kid who found her, Roar, the survivor. The car cruised through the dark Manhattan, glowing behind them like a galaxy. Millions of people, millions of stories. Hers was just one drop in the bucket. But maybe it would start a ripple. For the little guys, for the helpers, changing the game one person at a time, one fight at a time, one voice at a time. The car turned towards home. Bailey closed her eyes. Tomorrow brings new battles, but tonight, peace. She earned it. Ever felt underestimated? Ever looked down on someone else? How do you fix that smash that like button if you believe respect is a human right? Drop a comment. What's your move in Bailey's shoes? Send this to a friend who needs a boost. Hit subscribe for more justice served cold. Check the Grant Foundation link below. And never forget you're tougher than the bullies trying to keep you small. Even at 12, especially at 12, your voice is a weapon. Use it. 30 years behind bars. $4 billion recovered. A tween CEO. Sweet justice. But the scary part, 500 people stood there and watched Christopher Hayes throw cash in Bailey's face. Watched him make a 12-year-old crawl for her mom's death certificate. You know how many stepped in too? Margaret and Mr. Anderson, that's the count. 500 smartphones recording 2 humans acting. Christopher judged her by her hoodie and her shoes and decided she was trash. Didn't ask questions, didn't check facts, just assumed. Here's the kicker. Bailey had $4 billion to clap back with. Most kids in that spot. They have 0. They eat the dirt and walk away. Real talk. You'll see. How often have you watched someone get humiliated and stayed quiet? No shade, we all do it. Filming is safer than fighting. But Bailey was on her knees, sobbing over her dead mom, and 498 people just stared. If that happens in front of you tomorrow, what's the play? Like this video if you think dignity matters. Subscribe to Black Sage for more stories on real courage. Tell me ever stood alone when the crowd stayed silent. Bailey saves 2,000 kids a year now. Pain into fuel. Don't sleep on the underdog, they might change the world tomorrow. Never judge a book by its cover. You have no idea what someone is carrying.